You know, in a world that feels more chaotic and unpredictable by the day, how do you find any kind of inner calm? It's a huge question, right? But it turns out the answers might be thousands of years old, just waiting for us in two very different traditions. So let's just dive right in. We're going to explore this really surprising link between the Bhagavad Gita, which is a cornerstone of Hindu philosophy, and Stoicism, a school of thought from ancient Greece. I mean, they popped up worlds apart, but they both offer this incredible toolkit for dealing with the challenges of, well, right now. So what we have here are two totally distinct paths that, as you're about to see, land on one really profound idea: the power of detachment. On one side, you've got the Bhagavad Gita, where detachment is all about spiritual practice, a way to connect with something bigger than yourself. And on the other, you have Stoicism, which looks at detachment as a logical tool, a way to find tranquility and master your emotions. So totally different starting points, but they're marching in a very similar direction. The Stoic philosopher Seneca just nailed their whole view with this. The idea is that our own reactions, our anxieties and judgments about what happens, are often way more painful than the things themselves. And now check this out. Here's the parallel idea from the Gita. This is a foundational concept. It's basically saying, go all in. Do your work with total commitment, but don't get emotionally chained to the outcome, whether you win or you lose. So how do we actually do this? Well, both philosophies point to this art of detached action. And let's be super clear, this isn't about not caring. Not at all. It's about learning to care in a smarter, more effective way. So in the Gita, they have a name for this: Nishkama Karma. It's not about being apathetic or just sitting on your hands. It's about acting with 100% sincerity while keeping your inner self neutral to the results. You give it your absolute best, and then you let it go. And the Stoics, they had their own version, something they called the dichotomy of control. It's such a simple but powerful idea. Just divide everything in life into two buckets: stuff you can control and stuff you can't. They argued that true freedom comes from pouring all your energy into that first bucket and just learning to accept the second one. This table is really cool because it breaks down the subtle differences. See, the Gita's path is motivated by a sense of spiritual duty, and the ultimate goal is moksha, which is like spiritual liberation. Stoicism, on the other hand, is all about rational self-control, aiming for ataraxia, a state of just deep, unshakable calm. So you've got a spiritual journey and a logical one, both leading to the similar place of inner peace. So if you take one thing away, let it be this: detachment is not about being cold or checked out. In both of these traditions, it's actually an empowering mindset. It lets you engage more fully, more wisely with the world, precisely because you aren't being tossed around by every single up and down. Okay, so let's bring this ancient wisdom into the modern world. How does any of this apply to one of the most stressful things we do today: leadership? I mean, leaders today are dealing with a perfect storm. They're trying to navigate this incredibly volatile world. There's a huge crisis of trust, and research shows most managers aren't even properly trained for their jobs. And on top of all that, you've got things like the glass cliff, which puts even more pressure on leaders, especially women. The challenges are just immense. And this is where these philosophies offer such a timeless guide. The Gita, for instance, argues for leadership that's not based on ego or outcomes, but on self-mastery, emotional stability, and a really strong moral compass. These are principles that a Stoic leader, like the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, would have totally understood. This verse just perfectly captures the core idea. For a leader, success or failure isn't just about what's happening on the outside. It's determined by their own mindset. Mastering your own mind is always the first and most critical step to leading anyone else. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. We've talked about professional life. Now let's get personal. Let's talk about our own internal worlds. Because at its heart, the Gita is really an instruction manual for managing yourself. The Gita gives us this amazing model of our inner world. Think of it like a chariot. Your senses, those are the horses always wanting to run off. The mind holds the reins. But the intellect, that's the charioteer, who should be taking directions from the true passenger, the self, or Atman. The whole point is to make sure your wisdom, your intellect, is in charge, not your wild senses or your chaotic thoughts. So this philosophy really pushes us to look inward. When you're facing a tough time, especially in a relationship, the first question isn't, what's wrong with them? It's, okay, what's the real source of what I'm feeling right now? Sometimes we're just pointing our own unhappiness at the wrong target. And we're encouraged to really examine our motives. Are your decisions coming from your true values, or are they coming from fear? Fear of what people will think, fear of change, fear of being alone. Acting from a place of truth, not fear, is everything. And this question really brings it all home. Can you make a choice and be at peace with that choice because you know you acted with integrity, even if the whole thing goes sideways? That is what practicing this kind of equanimity in your daily life looks like. All right, so after this whole journey through ancient battlefields and Greek philosophical schools, we land right back here in our own modern lives. And this brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. Both the Gita and Stoicism teach us that our constant struggle to control every single thing on the outside is actually the source of all our stress. Real freedom, then, isn't about bending the world to your will. It comes from mastering your inner world, your perspective, your reactions, your choices. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said it so perfectly, in a line that honestly could have come straight from the Gita. It's our interpretation of things, not the things themselves, that has the power to wreck our peace of mind. So ultimately, these ancient texts leave us with this profound, timeless choice. Your own mind can be your most powerful ally, or it can be your most destructive enemy. The real question is, who are you letting take the reins?